Good afternoon, I'm Miranda Tomlinson, and this is Westminster News at 4 o'clock. Here are the headlines. Brexit may be facing a new wave of roadblocks. Inflation has reached a 6-year high. And a former Facebook executive has come out against the social networking giant. The European Union could still try and stop Brexit by forcing Britain to have another vote on leaving the bloc. MP Vicky Ford revealed that after conversations with her former EU colleagues, Brussels may force the vote to go ahead. Other recent reports have predicted that the UK will lose over 10,000 jobs to other European cities by day one of Brexit. The number of London firms planning to move jobs to the continent has doubled since last year. Vani Kanjen has more.
London firms plan to move 10,500 jobs out of the UK on day one of Brexit. The number of city firms planning to ship jobs to the continent has doubled since last year, professional services company EY said. Dublin, Frankfurt and Amsterdam might be the financial centers most likely to benefit from the UK's departure from the EU. Brexit is scheduled to take place on March 29, 2019, so companies have only 16 months to prepare for customs, scrutinize supply chains, withdraw contracts, develop contingency plans, to name but a few tasks. This is Vani Ganja reporting for Westminster News.
The UK's inflation has reached its highest level in nearly 6 years. The Office of National Statistics said that airfares and computer games were to blame for the increase. Spencer Zhang has more.
A new UK study shows the UK's inflation rose to more than 3% in November, the highest number in nearly 6 years. But more data shows the average living wages are just growing 2%. Now we ask the younger Londoners and how the price influences their life.
I think it's a problem for the wider economy of the country, but I think it's also a problem for families. It's going to cause people to have less in their pocket to spend on the things that they need to spend it on, education and their children.
Inflation just literally means like prices of everything going up, and obviously like as a student, we have a very limited budget, so I mean there's like quite a huge impact on that, because already you can't buy a lot of things, and with inflation going up it also restricts it a little more. So the government should sort of keep that in mind, like not just for students but for like people in general who are on limited budgets.
As an international student, I think the inflation of prices in the UK is gonna definitely make an impact on our life, because prices are going higher. Grocery shopping, I had to buy cigarettes today and it was 50p more expensive, which is not good for a student, since we all know we have to pay big prices and we can't get tax refund.
The lawyer representing the Grenfell Tower survivors has raised concerns that the inquiry's independent experts panel lacks ethnic diversity. Barrister Leslie Thomas, who is black, contrasted the mostly white male lawyers who appeared before the inquiry with the diverse group that make up the survivors. A former Facebook executive has said the site is ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. He has expressed regret for his part in building tools that are changing the way people interact with each other. Alice Fakini reports.
UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights this month in 1948, but still about a quarter of
Facebook has created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. This is the opinion of Chamath Palihapitiya, former Facebook executive, who has made his statement against the company, saying that he regrets being part of this. Saying this, he joined a growing group of critics of the social media giant. Facebook did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Anastasia Denisova, expert in social media, has explained that experts warned the public about the effects of social media platforms since it became a social phenomenon.
It's quite well known that that's how social media corporations, they make money on showing you the content that you're more likely to like, to share, to enjoy, to agree with. So I think it's a good news that it's becoming more visible and they have to be more transparent.
Palihapitiya was the vice president for user growth at Facebook. He worked on the short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops which create addiction amongst users. He says that social media has no civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation and mistruth. Denisova explains that regulation is important even if it can be problematic.
Regulation is a tricky part because it's a borderline censorship. It's always difficult to see who can regulate, how regulate and what grounds. to use. So I think it's a good idea to keep informing people, and journalism is really helpful here, that their social media, their news feeds, they're not neutral, they're not objective.
Social media platforms have been accused of influencing the public over the past years, which has shaped our perceptions of the world we live in. Many observers attributed the unexpected outcomes of the US presidential elections and Brexit referendum and amplifying the anti-Rohingya propaganda in Myanmar.
A new grooming gang was found in London as officers warn widespread abuse is taking place across the country. Young women are being deceived and many have been involved in these crimes. Yvonne Wu has more details.
UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights this month in 1948, but still about
Yesterday, 4 girls between the age of 13 and 15 have reported being raped by a group based on the McDonald's in Stratford. 3 boys and 3 men had already been arrested by the police. Up to now, at least 30 potential victims has already been identified, and the number is still growing. The McDonald's here in the Stratford Centre is a pickup point for grooming gang members congregating young girls. Police are already arresting around 420 men every month, with crime towards young girls boom up across England and Wales. They are easily being deceived and even feel they are in a relationship or in the way to make money.
We really realised the last couple of years that young women are increasingly involved, and not just in this kind of dichotomous categorisation where you're either kind of a honey trapper, which is very commonality, stereotype where young women are, being hustlers and going out and stabbing people up, and they're also categorised as victims where, they're kind of lured in and played around and passed around groups. So actually we're trying to identify the normalities of youth violence within young women's lives.
Yvonne Wu reports from Westminster News.
After accusing the EU of being responsible for the Libyan slave trade, Amnesty International has drawn attention to further human rights violations against women, LGBT people, and children. Zahida Rizvi has more.
UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights this month in 1948, but still about a quarter of the world's population continue to live under persecution. Amnesty International representative tells me that the organization have been protesting to stop human rights violation for the past couple of years, but still human rights has been witnessed of being violated even in 2017.
Rights defenders are attacked. We see attacks on freedom of expression. Human rights abuse is happening, and also there is no human rights without women's rights. There is no human rights without LGBTI rights.
The human rights challenges expected in 2017 reflect a stark shift in social, political and economic drivers at a global level, at risk of an international system upholding human rights protection and the rule of law, which could impact societies and economies.
To bring about a diverse audience who are able to engage in a constructive conversation and dialogue, which is more about forward-looking rather than focusing on who is to blame for the atrocities that's going on around us.
The Help Refugees charity has taken a step forward in creating change by opening the first shop where you can buy real gifts for refugees. Sri Lakshmi Vachaspati reports.
The Help Refugee, in collaboration with creative collective Glimpse, have opened the store Choose Love, where one can buy real gifts for refugees. James Turner, the co-founder of Glimpse, explains the concept of storytelling done through each item.
So you start with things like emergency blankets, water and hot food for when people just first arrive. And then there's a section about shelter, which is things like tents, sleeping bags and hygiene kits. And then the final section is the future, and Help Refugees do a lot of work with education, with getting people back into proper homes and helping them build a life in a new country.
This movement is also joined in by volunteers who are interested in being a part of Help Refugee charity.
While I was at university, I was president of Rag Society, Raising Giving Society, and we did a fundraiser for Help Refugees. So we hosted a mass parade ball for help refugees. So I started following them on social media, and I found the Choose Love campaign, and there's an internship alongside it. So I thought that'd be brilliant. Like, it's such a great charity and a great campaign.
Another volunteer also explains how charities like this have helped realizing people about creating a change, especially in major cities.
I think that shows a lot for the newfound care for humanity, and that regular citizens are actually starting to realise that they want to help and they don't want to sit around and do nothing about it. Especially in Europe, on our doorstep, it's happening right now, and it's our problem. When something's so far away, you don't really relate to it as much, but now it's here. I think people have started to realise that they need to help.
Choose Love is a start for change, and there are many more to come. This is Sri Lakshmi Vachaspati reporting for Westminster News.
Ministers are proposing a radical change in organ donation by moving to a system of presumed consent. This attempt is aimed at making organs more available for transplant than the current system.
For many people, getting an organ transplant is a long process. Currently, more than 6,000 patients in the UK are waiting. Every year, 450 of those on the waiting list die before the right donor is found. This shortage of donors might be because of how the current system works. People need to sign up to a register if they want to donate their organs after death.
The current system, about 80% are in agreement that they would want to donate their organs. However, they're not putting themselves on the register, so nobody actually knows what they actually believe in and whether they would believe in donating, which means their families, when faced with that decision in the hospital, quite often say no.
But today, a consultation on the new system starts in England. This means opting out of organ donation would replace opting in. In 2007, nearly 800 people were deceased donors. Now, after 10 years, that number had risen nearly 80% to more than 1,400. The new system could increase it more.
I think the change will be excellent because if people for religious reasons or what have you want to opt out, they can. But I think it's very good.
I think the current system needed to be changed personally. I think it is a difficult decision to make, and it's hard to make that choice on a practical level.
This approach has been already adopted in Wales, while Scotland plans to introduce a similar scheme. Northern Ireland is also interested in doing the same. The new organ donation system can increase the number of donors dramatically. This is what many patients hope to be applied sooner than later. Mohammed Abdullah, Westminster News.
The full lineup of this year's UEFA Champions League has been made, with England's champion Chelsea given a messy draw that sees them take on FC Barcelona in the last 16. Our sports reporter Rahman Osman joins me now with all the details. Rahman, thanks so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you, Miranda, for having me.
So what are the chances for our England clubs look like?
Well, interesting pair-up, but big one. Manchester United will be fancying their chances, especially when they take on Sevilla. And the Manchester City, who are breaking all kinds of records in the English Premier League, have been given a very favourable draw. They come up against FC Basel. So a lot of English teams getting very, very good pair-ups. And your Tottenham Hotspur get to play Juventus in a game that everybody wants to see. Tottenham have never played Juventus in the UEFA Champions League. So that's a very, very, very tight one for them.
So the big question, do the Spurs have a chance? Do they stand a chance?
Well, they do. I mean, Spurs have got Harry Kane. If you've got Harry Kane, you definitely have a chance to make it. Now, the first time in the history of the Champions League, all 4 English teams could make it to the quarter-final stage of the competition.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
All right, this has been the Westminster News at 4 o'clock. I'm Miranda Tomlinson.